Bring the meeting to order. Welcome back, everybody. First item is consent agenda C1. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. Mayor Pro Tem, are you here? Okay. Councilman Reinbach, you here? Councilmember Anderson, you here? Councilmember Clifford Barnett, are you here? Councilmember Spears, are you here?
I'm here.
Okay, Councilmember Waddell, you here? Okay, and the chair's here. Everybody's here and accounted for. C1 is approval of the minutes. C2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a 5-year interlocal agreement with New Hanover County for services for the New Hanover County Soil and Water Conservation District. C3 is a resolution to enter into a 5-year professional services agreement with Cape Fear River Watch. C4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement to purchase 3 2023 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 work trucks from Modern Chevrolet LLC of Winston-Salem, NC for $138,000 through the North Carolina Sheriff's Association Purchasing Cooperative. C5 is a resolution of intent to close an unimproved portion of Willard Street in the city of Wilmington. C6 is a resolution of intent to close an unimproved portion of Martin Street in the city of Wilmington. PH1 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property containing 21.44 acres of land located at 3743 Independence Boulevard from O&I CD Office and Institutional Conditional District and MD17 CD High Density Multi-Dwelling Residential Conditional District to RBCD Regional Business Conditional District for a master plan development. PH2 is an ordinance amending the official zoning maps of the city to rezone property containing 8.7 acres of land located at 2231 One Tree Hill Way from LI Light Industrial to MHCD Manufactured Housing Conditional District for a recreational vehicle campground. And then PH3 is an ordinance amending the official zoning maps of the city to rezone property containing 2.54 acres of land located at 5030, 5032, and 5034 Moonlight Lane from R15 Moderate Density Single Dwelling District to R7 CD Medium Density Single Dwelling Conditional District for a residential community containing 17 units.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
We will have a request to delay P3 for an additional 2 weeks.
Okay.
But we just had to put it on the agenda since you'd already called for the public hearing.
Okay. Ordinances 01 is an ordinance making supplemental appropriations in the amount of $2,940 to the Special Purpose Fund for the River to Sea Bikeway Ride. And then 02 is an ordinance making the supplemental appropriation to the Public Improvements Equipment Fund for a New Hanover County ABC Board grant in the amount of $49,900 for the purchase of 5 e-bikes and 3 interactive kiosks. Then 03A is an ordinance making supplemental appropriations of $2,104,000 to the Water Street Park Bulkhead Repair Project for the purchase of 201 North Water Street and to provide for related operating costs. And you can see what the budget impact is there. And then 03B is the resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with the United States Coast Guard for the purchase of real property located at 201 North Water Street for up to $1,220,000 for the Wilmington Riverwalk and Water Street Park. Then resolutions is R1A is a resolution providing approval of a multifamily housing facility to be known as Starway Village Phase 1 and the financing thereof with multifamily housing revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $23,500,000. And then R1B is a resolution providing approval of a multifamily housing facility to be known as Starway Village Phase 2 and the financing thereof with multifamily housing revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $13,600,000. And then R2 is a resolution authorizing the conveyance of 2 surplus properties to Cape Fear Habitat for Humanity Incorporated for the purpose of providing affordable and or no-cost housing to members of the Wilmington community. And then R3 is a resolution adopting the Urban Forestry Master Plan for the city of Wilmington. R4 is a resolution adopting Walk Wilmington, a comprehensive pedestrian plan for 2023 update. Then R5 is a resolution authorizing city manager to enter into an agreement with East West Partners Management Company Incorporated to extend the evaluation period for the Northern Gateway project.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
in regards to R5, I'm just kind of curious, with this additional 90-day extension, I think this is the third extension of this size. Is there any consideration from the developer to the city for this tertiary extension?
There has not been any consideration, no, sir.
We asked for it?
No, sir.
Okay. I don't know if it's appropriate to get some sort of update on where we are, where the tension points in the negotiation process are, but it seems to be just getting really drug out at this point with no real assurances that they're going to stay at the table. And I think it would be important to get some updates, whether publicly or privately, what the best course of action is there.
Given that we're in a negotiation, I would suggest that any updates for council be done in closed session.
Certainly. Thank you.
Okay, and then the last one is RP1's reports of the Evaluations Committee. And with that, we conclude this pre-agenda. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This morning we have one presentation for you. It's going to be a relatively long one. It's an update from the police chief on the progress the police department's made towards the implementation of their strategic plan. And Chief Williams will lead us through this discussion.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Next slide, Dylan. Today, we're going to give you 4 presentations, so you're going to get 4 for the price of 1. The first one will be the 2025 strategic plan, which Chief Evangelist presented to you back in April of 2019. I will present that. We'll do a brief presentation on community policing and community engagement. We'll do a mid-year 2023 crime stats update. And then finally, our homeless outreach team, which is our joint partnership between the city and county, they will come up and present. And that will be done by Sergeant Ron Evans and Caitlin Maddox. But before we get into that, I'd like to recognize Donna Faco. She is our Director for Health and Human Services, and she's here today to support our personnel. Before I get into the presentation, I'd also like to inform you that the North Carolina Police Executives Conference is going on this week. As we're speaking right now, we're doing the opening ceremony at the Convention Center, so you will see police leaders from all over the state here enjoying our city this week. My day one challenges going back to June of 2020, we were dealing with navigating COVID-19. That first day on the job, I had to deal with agency trust restoration with our community, and several of you that were there in the room with me. The social justice movement and civil unrest, setting expectations and the culture for our agency personnel, and maintaining service expectations with less resources. So the strategic plan was on my mind, but it really wasn't on my mind the first 6 months. I had a long laundry list of things that I had to jump on immediately. Next slide. Staffing has been a challenge, and I wanted to just give you some snapshots. We have averaged an authorized agency strength of 270 to 280 officers. Right now, today, we're budgeted at 279. Field deployable personnel are officers that are available to work in the field. They're not in training, they're not on light duty, they're not on FMLA, they're not on military. In June of 2017, we had 244 field deployable. June of 2018, 256. February of 2019, 252. We did not list 2020 because that number was up and down. During 2020, with COVID, I can recall we had an entire platoon that was in quarantine. So we may have 20 people just in quarantine because of COVID. 2021, you saw that number dip to 241, 2022, 227, and 2023, as of today, I only have 229 people that are field deployable. That is 50 bodies that I am down in the field. Next slide. So I'm going to show you a breakdown of where those 50 bodies are. Right now, today, we only have 4 vacant positions, which is real good. That's real good. So there is hope in the pipe. We have 2 conditional offers that are out there. We have 16 that will be starting BLET on the 31st of this month, and that's going to be an 8-month process before we can use them in a solo capacity. We have 13 that are awaiting certification from the state, and they will be sworn in on the 27th of this month. It's funny how these numbers change. I worked on this some during the weekend, and the field training one has changed already. I had one graduate field training last night, so we only have 6 in field training, which actually that's going to decrease the field deployable number to 230. And we have 8 that are on FMLA light duty or on military leave. Next slide. Envisioning our future, again, as I mentioned, this plan was put into place in 2019, and it's supposed to last until 2025, but we've made a bunch of progress with this plan. Next slide. Starting on page 3, and you should have a copy of it, one of the first things that we did was change our mission statement. Our mission statement for the Wilmington Police Department had been the same for over 20 years. This mission statement was created under the leadership of Chief John Cease in the 90s, and it had not changed until 2020. Just looking at it, the partnership with the community remained the same. Respect and value all citizens used to be respect for human dignity. We changed that one. Organizational excellence and accountability remained the same. Teamwork approach to problem solving remained the same. Equality and inclusion, where all people are treated fairly, that is a change. It used to be equal application of the law and reducing crime. Commitment to our agency and the community it serves, that one changed. That used to be commitment to officer professionalism and safety. And the final change was transparency through open and effective community. That used to be to maintain public safety and confidence. We then defined our vision statement. We sort of kind of knew what the vision was, but it was not down on paper. So we put a vision statement on paper. And finally, we defined core values for the police department, and this took place in 2020. We put a team together that was led by Linda Thompson and Captain Rodney Dawson to do this update for us. Next slide. On page 5 of the strategic plan, we changed the org chart to reflect the way that we are currently structured today. So that's a change that has been made. Next slide. We used data from the citizen survey on page 8, and that has changed from when we first did this back in 2019 to 2021. The rating for Wilmington increased by 6 points during that period, and Wilmington is 10 points higher than the U.S. average. And when you look at the highlights from the plan, the quality of police services rated at 70% satisfaction, and that's from page 8. Next slide. Reflections from our past, page 9 and 10 of the plan. These are holdover items from the 2010 plan that went into our 2019 plan, and we have made some headway in addressing those 2 issues. With the 10-year plan to end homelessness, our city manager, through working with our county, was able to come up with the innovative idea of funding the homeless outreach partnership with New Hanover County. I'm not going to dig into that because you'll hear about it a little bit later on. The next holdover item from page 2, bilingual pay, we added that in 2020 along with hazardous duty pay for our special teams personnel. Next slide. Envisioning future trends, page 12. It was projected that calls for service would go up, and they actually went down. And that was a blessing due to the number of officers that we have been short, that our calls for service went down instead of going up. Next page. Envisioning future trends, page 14, new developments. We added 5 downtown officers in fiscal year 23. Live Nation contracted with us for 25 downtown concerts in 2022. And outside of your normal events, we did 15 special events just in the downtown area. On page 15, we talk about redistricting, creating a 7th district, and we basically postponed that due to our staffing and the overall cost, and I cannot find that cost. I've looked for it for several days, but I was trying to do it from memory. It was in the millions of dollars to implement that 7th district. To alleviate some of the congestion on the radio, which is one of the issues in the plan, we've shifted some personnel over on some of our radio channels that we operate off of. Next slide. Envisioning future workforce personnel, page 16. The plan called for adding 34 officers between 2019 and 2023, 34 additional officers. Due to staffing challenges and funding, this did not take place. So if you're down 5 officers, if you're down 50 officers, it doesn't matter to the citizens, they're going to continue to call, so you have to get the work done. So we came up with some innovative ways in 2021 to get the work done. We created a virtual response unit, which is staffed with 7 civilians, and they take a lot of workload off of our officers in the field. We were able to expand our civilian crash program because in 2007, we received permission from the legislatures to use civilian crash investigators, so we tripled the capacity of that unit. Between those 2 units, they take probably about 20 to 30% of the work off of our patrol officers in the field, so it does help out. In 2022, we civilianized a vacant position that ran our simulators out at the training facility. And in 2023, we were able to gain back 10 sworn positions. Several of them went into the homeless outreach unit, 1 went into the gun crimes unit, and the others went into the downtown unit. And we're working on trying to get those bodies through training so we can get those folks in the field. Next slide. Page 17, we added 3 new polygraph operators and purchased a new polygraph instrument in 2022. Personnel will be a holdover item for this next strategic plan that we're hoping to start working on here soon. Next page. Page 18, facilities, our Southeast Substation CIP. Currently, 3 divisions are located at the Southeast facility. Plans are to relocate the Narcotics Investigation Division to the new downtown campus. The Special Operations Division will then go to City Operations Center to go into a space that's currently occupied by another city department that will go to the downtown campus. We're looking at options to lease space for our Uniform Patrol Division. By working with our manager in doing this, we may be able to pretty much eliminate the Southeast CIP or reduce the cost down, which would save the city $10 to $18 million. Next slide. Envisioning future resources facilities. Our property and evidence area has over 119,000 pieces of evidence. Future space allotment may be a holdover item for the next strategic plan. The section is staffed by a property and evidence supervisor and 4 technicians. The HVAC system was a big concern in the strategic plan, and through working with Dave Mays, we were able to get that replaced in 2022. And looking at the chart, you can see that the amount of evidence coming in exceeds what we're able to get out of there. We just can't throw the stuff away. We have to go to court. We have to get destruction orders. It's an involved process. Next slide. Envisioning future resources, facilities, page 20, our mounted unit. We have increased our mounted unit to 4 officers. We have 4 officers, even though unfortunately we lost a horse. We're down to 3 horses. We're in the process of trying to buy 2 more horses, but we have 4 officers, and they primarily work in the MSD. That's mainly where they're working. They're not counted as MSD officers, but that's where they're at the majority of the time. In 2022, we began a 3-year replacement plan for police horses, and we will continue to lease our stables and explore options on getting a facility closer to headquarters. Our impound lot at the Coleman facility is pretty much full, and that needs to be a holdover item for the next strategic plan. Next slide. Our downtown substation facilities, page 20. We don't need to do anything with it. I think it's fine for the next couple of years, and it probably will not be included in the plan. We are in the final stages of a 4-year project to upgrade the security system at WPD headquarters. On page 21, technology and equipment, every officer has a new body camera with live stream capability. This will be a game changer for us. Once we sign our new contract, then we can cut that feature on, and we'll be able to log into our officers' cameras in the field and look at critical incidents in real time. The new Axon contract also includes unlimited video storage, and each interview room and over 100 of our patrol cars are equipped with cameras. Next slide. Envisioning future resources, technology, and equipment. In 2020, we obtained additional cameras for use throughout the city. In 2022, we obtained 3 mobile camera towers for use at special events. There's talk of rapid DNA technology. We decided not to forego that because the sheriff's office recently acquired the technology, and why do we need to spend that much money when we can just share that resource with them? The Sting Center may relocate and upgrade as part of the downtown campus acquisition. The forensic lab in 2019 was transferred to the county. I can't talk about this piece of equipment publicly because of a non-disclosure agreement, but basically there's a $500,000 piece of equipment, and I decided that we're not going to replace it. We will get that work done another way, and we can use that $500,000 for something else in the city. The police boat had a major overhaul in 2021. 2 new engines are being purchased in 2023. The agency acquired 2 jet skis in 2022 at no cost through a law enforcement loan program. Next. Envisioning future resources, technology, and equipment, page 23. Both bomb suits were replaced and are on a staggered schedule. We were able to work out a dog at no cost to us from the ATF in 2020 to do explosives. Our bomb robot was refurbished in 2021. A second robot was added in 2022 at no cost. We're purchasing a grant-funded total containment vessel for hazardous device disposal in 2023. This will be a truck-mounted unit. It'll be the first of its kind in the Carolinas. No one in South Carolina or North Carolina has this piece of equipment. The SWAT team has replaced protective vests and helmets. SWAT received a new equipment truck in 2019 and a personnel transport van in 2020. We're upgrading all the ballistic glass this year in our SWAT tactical vehicle. The Sable program received a FLIR and moving map upgrade in 2022, and additional drones have been added, and a separate drone unit is now operational in Sable. Next. In 2020, page 24, envisioning future policing, we created a special victims unit in the Criminal Investigations Division by consolidating resources in 2019. In 2020, we began using predictive analytics. It's called Resource Router, and it develops a real-time patrol response plan through a proprietary algorithm, which is updated multiple times per day. And the key is making our officers available so we can get them in the right locations that the analytics are telling us to be, which is sometimes a challenge due to the high volume of calls that we have to respond to. The traffic unit acquired special equipment for downloading crash data in 2020. We established a gun crime unit that investigates all gun crime and violent offenders in 2021. We combined our gang resources under one umbrella in 2021 under the FBI. We obtained a 3D crime scene scanner used to map crime and crash scenes in 2021. And there was other specialized equipment obtained for digital evidence preservation. And what's more important to me than a lot of this equipment and things that I've shared with you, we have placed a strong emphasis on positive community engagement with our personnel being involved in this community. Community engagement is paramount to having a department that has a good relationship with your community. Next slide. Disaster.
Chief,
yes.
let me just chime in right there, because over a period of weeks, we've heard about the absence of community policing. So I don't want you to glaze over that so quickly. If you can, in a short period of time, or maybe it doesn't have to be a short period of time, talk about your efforts to not only the presence of community policing, but what you've done to reinforce community policing.
Can I do it later on? Because I actually have a piece in the presentation that talks about community policing.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump the gun.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for bringing that up and the importance of it.
All right, go ahead.
Disaster preparedness, page 25, which is the last page of the actual strategic plan. We did electronics upgrades to the Police Operations Center in 2022. We acquired 2 high water rescue vehicles in 2019. They're high water rescue vehicles. They're capable of winching trees. We can respond when the hurricane is still active if need be. And this is a big one. This has driven me for over 20 years. Hurricanes Fran and Bertha. I was a young officer and I had to direct traffic for 12 hours a day for 2 weeks straight. And it broke my spirits on directing traffic with those lights being out. So for years we have been working, and last year we were able to pre-wire every intersection in this city to take backup generator power. Every intersection in the city is pre-wired. And we did 31 that are not in the city that are out in the county. We have a truck, and it's on display at the police execs conference. That truck holds 42 generators ready to rock and roll all the time. We have another truck that has a forklift attached to it, and it stays in a configuration where we can build a roundabout at a major intersection. If the signal cabinet is destroyed and it's going to take a day or two to rebuild it, we can go out and convert it to a roundabout. We have the ability to do that with 2 intersections. Next slide. These are things that I had to deal with that were not in the plan or we felt it needed to happen. Additional initiatives, educational opportunities, and agency recognition. We completed our CALIA Advanced Accreditation in 2021. We were selected as a pilot agency by the North Carolina Department of Justice for their new accreditation program, and I'm hoping to be awarded state accreditation here soon. We will be one of the first agencies in the state of North Carolina to be accredited by the Department of Justice. Emphasis has been placed on traffic safety with the release of monthly traffic safety PSAs. More people are dying in traffic crashes than they are by homicide, and this is something that we need to focus on. We were featured in the Mike Rowe series, How America Works, which was a 1-hour episode, and it highlighted our agency positively nationwide. Next slide. We added our own in-house diversity officer under personnel in 2021. We overhauled the internal selection process for specialized assignments. We relaxed our grooming and uniform standards to allow for beards, like the young officer behind me has, and tattoos. I'm not a beard and tattoo guy, but you have to change to make people want to come to work for you, and that's one of the things that we had to do. We created an officer's lounge area. We extended our officer meal breaks. For years it had been 30 minutes. 30 minutes is not long enough for somebody that's out there working a 12-hour shift. So that's one of the things we changed. We began mandatory wellness visits with trained professionals following critical incidents. The next strategic plan will need to focus on compensation and retention to stay competitive in the future market. Next slide. Training. The Haynes Lacewell facility went operational in 2020. It is the cat's meow when it comes to training. A lot of agencies are very excited when they come there and they see it, and it's just a great place to do a lot of good things. And we're also able to do some of our community engagement efforts there at that facility. All sworn personnel have been trained in fair and impartial policing. That was one of those first day challenges that you had given to me. All sworn personnel have been trained in active bystandership for law enforcement, which is ABLE. We introduced Gracie survival tactics, a Brazilian jiu-jitsu-based method of control. This has been great with our officers. One of the young officers behind me, Corporal Marshall, Officer Cookson, and Officer Koch, came to me with this idea, and we gave it to them and let them run with it, and it's worked out for the agency. We've established a Cape Fear Regional Special Teams. We now have partnerships with law enforcement agencies in parts of Brunswick, all of Pender, Duplin, and parts of Columbus County.
Chief, we got a question here,
Chief,
Councilman Rumble.
I don't want to interrupt. It's a good. What is active bystandership for law enforcement?
What it does is during the height of the protests, this program came out. And what it teaches you is actionable skills to intervene if you see somebody making a mistake. It started in the airline industry, and the reason it started there is you would have a pilot sitting there doing something that was wrong, and the co-pilot wouldn't say anything about it, and the plane would end up crashing, and people were getting hurt and killed. So they started in the airline industry, it went over to the medical field, and basically what it comes down to, sir, you have a lot of agencies saying we have a duty to intervene policy. Having a policy means nothing if your folks don't have the skills to do something with it. So that's what this does. It teaches them those skills. Next slide. Additional initiatives, equipment. We have actively sought grants. Since 2020, we have received over $2 million in grant funding for vehicles, equipment, and other operational needs. We begin to transition to the next generation handguns in 2021. We purchased a new negotiations trailer and upgraded negotiations team equipment in 2023. We expanded our take-home car program in 2022 for every officer would get a car. That's a recruiting deal. They're not having to wait for 2 years. And the electric bikes, we have 5 in the field. I'm hoping that you will consider approving 5 more tomorrow night. Part of my vision with the community engagement is these electric bikes are a game changer. I know Councilmember Waddell seen me out there every other Wednesday. I'm one of our older officers at over 50 years old. I get on an e-bike for half a shift, and I've done it in the blazing heat. And part of the reason I'm doing that is I'm seeing how far we can push our officers being on an e-bike. So what I would like to see in the future, the first 10 e-bikes, we pretty much have to use them downtown, but we have another grant proposal for 7 more. In some of our smaller districts, in the day and evening time, I would like to see officers out on e-bikes. There's been a few cases where I was on the e-bike, we would get a call for service, and I could actually beat the second car to the call. And there was one call where I beat both cars to the call and was able to clear the call before they even got there because of being on that bike and being nearby. I worked a Friday night last month, and I rode one out at night around 8 or 9, and I'm gonna be honest, that was a little squirrely. I'm not real comfortable with putting officers out on e-bikes at nighttime. But during the daytime, especially when temperature comes down some and our staffing levels increase, I think this would be good for us and for our community. Next slide. We did our cruise light survey to involve our community in 2021. That is still going. We built a video production studio to increase our agency's visibility on social media and our community engagement. Community engagement is very important. We're able to push out our own PSAs and our own ideas. We've involved the community in selecting names for our animals. We did it in 2020, we did it in 2022, and we'll do it again this year when we get those 2 horses. All lieutenants and above promotions, we have involved community panels in those promotions. Every one of them. We just finished up our last one with Deputy Chief. We had 5 highly respected members of this community sitting on that panel. We reestablished our Citizens Academy at the new training facility. We completed our law enforcement museum, which turned out really good, and we're implementing a personal self-defense class for citizens in 2023, women's self-defense. And Corporal Metlock, one of our instructors, she's in the room behind me, and they're going to do a real good job with that. And next slide. Next steps, you're probably wondering what's next. After reaching out to our budget director a year ago, I can't remember if I met with Laura in person, but I called her a year ago because unbeknownst to our folks, I've been working, pointing them in the direction of the strategic plan, checking these things off. And I was like, Laura, we're gonna get to a point to where we can't do anything else and we probably need to upgrade it. Where is the city at with the city's plan? So we made a decision a year ago that we would wait until the city's plan was complete, and then the police department, we would do our strategic plan and fall in behind the city. We need to be on the same highway. We don't need the police department on 74, 76 trying to get to Greensboro and the city being on I-40. We both need to be on that same highway together. So this decision was made a year ago that we would wait. So after we complete the City of Wilmington plan, unbeknownst to our folks, and they'll find out probably next week in staff meeting, we're going to form an internal team to work on the plan, and I want all levels of the organization, from me on down to the newest officers, to have an opportunity to put input into the plan. We will seek citizen input regarding the concerns of each district. I think the last 2 plans, we used the data from the citizen survey. We have already announced it. We're going to take the mobile command post out to each of our 6 police districts. And I want citizens to come in and meet with me and key staff members, because I think it's important that we get citizen input in the strategic plan, because at the end of the day, that's who we're serving. Ideas that make sense and are practical will be included in the plan. There's some ideas I have right now as a chief, but they're not practical because I know we can't fund them. So we got to make sure that it's practical what goes in there. And the plan will attempt to capture relevant national and local challenges while being adaptable. It's got to be adaptable. We got to be able to change it on the fly. And next slide. Questions about the strategic plan before we move into our next phase?
Yes, sir.
Chief, thank you so far. Sounds like you got a lot more for us. You were going pretty fast. Can you go to page 23? It was, I don't even know what it said because I was writing so fast. Further back.
Page 23.
Oh, there we go.
Tell me about some of the, I mean, as much as you can. I know a lot of things you probably don't like to necessarily discuss, and I understand that. How have you, the drones, how have you found good uses for them, or what? I'm just curious how you're using that piece of equipment.
Yeah.
A lot, a little? You know,
We use them a lot. We use them during investigations. If we get a fatal traffic crash, what we would used to have to do in some cases, we call the fire department out, and we've had to get in a aerial truck and do overhead shots of that crash scene. We can now do that from a drone. Missing persons cases, we'll bring a drone out because our drones have heat recognition cameras on them. If we're doing a chase and we have a jump and run, we can bring the drone out for that. To document training, our community outreach folks, they are trained drone operators, so if we're putting together a public safety announcement, we may want to include some aerial footage for the drones. So we're just using them for a lot of uses, and since we're on the drones, I can go ahead and talk about one thing that I would love to see in the future, and I don't know if it would be practical, but in Chula Vista, California, they have drones that are pre-positioned throughout the city. I think it's 29 of them, and they're located on the top of buildings, and when the officers are being dispatched to high priority calls for service, the drone automatically launches and goes along with the officer. And the drone kind of gets there first and gives the command center a picture of what's going on. That requires an FAA waiver, and you have to get a waiver anytime you're flying beyond the operator's physical visual limits of the drone. Like right now we operate our drones, our operator has to stand there and be able to visually look at the drone. But they were able to work it out through a waiver where they're using the drones in a first response, first launch role. And I would like to see that here at some point in the future. It may not be during my time, but I think it's a great resource.
Thank you. On the same page, you mentioned a containment vessel that's unique, or I can't remember the term, but can you just give us a little more detail there? I thought that was,
yeah, it was.
You raised my curiosity.
Yeah, it was paid for on a port security grant, and it's called a total containment vessel. And ours will be truck mounted, and there are some others in the state that are trailer mounted, but ours will be on a truck. And basically what it's designed to do, if the bomb squad goes out and they find a dangerous or hazardous device and they cannot neutralize it there on the spot, we can put it in this truck and safely transport it to a bomb range where it can be taken care of. The truck is actually designed where you can, in some cases, you can detonate it right there on the spot in the truck in a neighborhood. We are not going to do that. I made that perfectly clear. There have been some accidents in other parts of the country, but we would use it mainly to get the ordnance safely out of the city and out to a bomb range where it can be taken care of.
But somebody has to volunteer to drive it out there, it sounds like, though.
Yeah, someone's got to drive it out there. But they're doing it now in the back, putting it in a day box in the back of a pickup truck, which is not safe. So this truck here will just be a game changer for us.
Okay. Dylan, if you get page 29, there was a discussion, it was just a line item about about merging the gang units or something along those lines.
Yes, sir.
Can you, I remember, we were getting updates on gang activity pretty regularly several years ago, and I remember we were watching we had people, the social media, we're monitoring activity as thoroughly as possible. Is that still did that change anything, or I must have the wrong page? I think there was one about merging with the county, and there was a line item about that.
I don't want to get into our investigative tactics, but I will say that we have combined our gang resources under the FBI umbrella. Basically, you had the Wilmington Police Department had a gang unit, you had the County Sheriff's Office had a gang unit, and then we kind of had a task force with members of both departments involved with the FBI, but we also had our separate gang units. So our sheriff, who's been a great partner, we just decided we're going to put it all together up under Guy Honeyman, and then they would have the full authority of the FBI, and that has worked out very well for us.
Great. The e-bikes are real, I think I mean, it sounds like you're testing out the wins and wears, but how do you have any, are there other places in the country that are further along, or how do you envision them being used? I just see them as a great kind of community, neighborhood kind of, I don't know what I'm trying to, I guess, neighborhood policing kind of tool, or how do you envision them?
Basically what you just said, except we would use them in a regular patrol capacity also. Some of our districts are not as large as others, and I could see some of our patrol officers, instead of putting them in a car, putting one or two of them, and they would have to be in teams, putting them on a e-bike and just letting them get out there and being able to interact more with the public. Those e-bikes are conversation starters. When I was on it Wednesday, I'm gonna be honest, I got hungry and I was like, I'll go to the food court at the mall, and I took the bike inside the mall with me. And before I could get into the food court, a citizen was already coming up asking me questions about the bike, and he was real excited about it. So I just think we can expand upon that.
I agree. I think you're more approachable for whatever reason than inside contained in a car, and I think that'd be great for a lot of a lot of neighborhoods that are more pedestrian, where you got a lot more people moving about, walking, pedestrian friendly, if you will, or more. I don't know if it's, all of them are friendly. Right. Let me move on from that. But what I was the last one. Well, I'll wait. You may cover it. I think you probably will. You mentioned Kevin asked earlier about the community policing, so I'll let you move on.
Yes, yes, sir.
Hey, Chief, the intersections, the cameras, and the traffic lights, and I guess this is more pointing toward the issues that we've had in the past, where we have these characters that get out here and they have a shootout, like they had a couple, about a week ago over at the mall or somewhere, where they start shooting at each other and then they take off, and then do you think it's prudent that we start looking for a more elaborate camera system so that when that shot spotter goes off, and then we can triangulate and find out on the roadways where these cars are? Because obviously there's usually a visual description of the car. There's usually suspects in the car, and we can never catch these guys, or they ditch the car, or they ditch the guns, whatever the case is, where we can really start focusing more on these kind of folks that are doing this kind of stuff in the community, because I know they're going after each other, but an innocent bystander obviously could be hit with the shooting that they do.
Yes, yes, sir. I would like to see cameras definitely included in our strategic plan, and also the use of license plate recognition technology. I know that can get a little controversial, but I just think we're getting to the point we seriously need to consider using it. We played with it back in the mid-2000s. It was car-mounted. It didn't work out very well for us, but the technology has changed tremendously since then. So,
I'm glad to hear that. I think it's desperately needed because these folks are just, they don't care. Thank you.
I would think that drones could play an active role in that as well, in surveilling, immediately respond to an area where there's an incident.
yes, I think they could, based on that Chula Vista model.
Let me go back a second to the e-bikes. The old expression, monkey see, monkey do. I think that everybody in this room has had somebody less than 16 years old cruising down the street, not on a sidewalk or a cross-city trail, at 30, 35 miles an hour on an e-bike, not wearing a helmet, no tags. At some point, we're going to have to address that, because they're coming more and more prevalent, and they're getting on the cross-city trail and these, I don't know how fast they go, but they sure as hell go faster than a standard bicycle. And
Mr.
just-
Cottle has already put that on our list of things to do with the e-bikes. He's already on it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Chief, I want to thank you and your officer for this presentation and the one that's sure to follow, the couple that are following. There's a lot of really good, exciting things in here, things that I'm proud to see, things I know you and the rest of the police department are and should be proud of. Hurdles crossed and items just taken care of. I know the community also certainly appreciates your service. I am, however, of the mind that there's always room for improvement. And I think there's a specific sector that's probably not going to be a surprise to you that I see significant room for improvement. And I want to bring it specifically to the reference of the E in our mission statement. It used to be equal application of the law to reduce crime, and it's now equality inclusion where all people are treated fairly. Whichever way you say it, I think we're failing at this specific section of the mission statement. And specifically, the issue of the appearance to me and to other citizens who've reached out to me of what appears to be two separate ordinances. One set for all of us here in this meeting, in this room, the law-abiding citizen, the tourist that's coming to enjoy Wilmington and everything we have to offer, the family headed downtown to go get ice cream. We have one set of ordinances that we have to abide by. And then there's another set of ordinances that anyone who's, they're homeless, suffering from mental health issues, substance abuse issues, they abide by a separate set. Their set of ordinances appears to be far more lenient than the first set. For them, public intoxication, public indecency, open containers, consumption of alcohol, open-air drug use, vulgarity, aggressive panhandling are all seemingly just on the table. It's fine. Obviously, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic there. I understand that there's only one set of ordinances, but I'm continually getting inundated with phone calls and texts about this very issue. Yesterday, I got it. Haven't even forwarded it along yet because I just didn't have the time. So there's a lot of folks in the community that feel this way. And the seven of us can sit up here all day long coming up with ordinances that we think are going to solve issues, but ultimately, if they're not enforced, the seven of us are effectively worthless. So a year ago, we had the largest pay increase, I believe, in history, because that's what y'all stood up here and said you needed. We've authorized planes, other equipment, vehicles, new weapon systems. It appears, these e-bikes are great. So, but I want to know in some really plain terms, what do you need? Because I'm on board. What do you need to effectively enforce the laws that we have on the books equally across the board, specifically to those issues that I mentioned before? And it may be touched on in a following presentation, but I think that conversation really needs to be had.
I'm going to go back to one of the earlier slides that I presented. I need police officers. I'm down 50 officers. When you're down 50 officers, you have to prioritize. Part of the issue is we run 300 to 500 calls for service every 24 hours. I think yesterday there was 186 calls on day shift and 174 at nighttime. That was a slow day. They're running calls for service. We can't ignore domestics. We can't ignore people that are in traffic crashes with injuries. I got up to go to the bathroom at 3:30 this morning, and I looked at CAD. I had 5 officers on calls at 3:30 in the morning because this city never sleeps. It never stops. So that's the first hurdle that we got to get beyond. We have to respond to the daily calls for service that are coming in, and we have to prioritize things. And when you're 50 officers down in the field, you have to prioritize. And even though it sounds bad, we're 50 down in the field, we do have water in the pipe. There are some officers some agencies that are 50 down, and that's 50 vacancies they're down. So the bottom line, to do these things more proactively, I got to have the bodies. Our predictive analytics software, it creates these 300 by 300 meter boxes called mission boxes. The key is to have officers in these boxes to prevent crime from happening. I can't get them in the boxes because they're running calls for service because we don't have enough officers. So that's the hurdle that we got to get over. We got to have bodies, and that's part of the reason we did the Cape Fear Regional Special Teams. We did the special teams because we have the armored vehicles, we have the command posts, we have the bomb trucks, but guess what? It does you no good if you don't have the people to operate that stuff. It's just beautiful equipment that's sitting in a building. And that's where we were headed, to being a department that's well-equipped, but we don't have the people when we have a critical incident. So that's why we combined our resources.
So if we get 50, if we were to put 50 bodies in the police force right now, then all our mission boxes are checked, and for the time being, we are covered.
It's not going to eliminate all of these problems
Sure.
because even fully staffed, you can't be at every corner at every time, and you can't prevent every little behavior that you see or every major behavior. But I think we would stand a better chance of addressing these things if we have 50 more bodies available to us.
And
I'd like to also just kind of chime in. The chief is right. He does need to make sure these folks are on the street instead of in the line. But the other side of it is that, and Chief's done a good job of this, but we've got to make sure that the community's working with us on this. And over the course of the past couple of weeks, I've had occasion to call folks who have complained about these kinds of issues because they've gotten to me as opposed to getting to you, which is good. That's the way it should be working. And being able to get the information from these folks, that is put into the system such that we can respond more effectively than just at random. That's the first thing. And the second thing, I appreciate the fact that, you know, you got the calls over the weekend and haven't had a chance to do it yet. But as soon as that information can get relayed to us, as soon as those folks can get the opportunity to call the police department and Donnie can provide that contact person, then we need to be effective with the community, not in place of the community.
And I will say, Chief is always spot on. As soon as I reach out, he says, "Yeah, here's make sure we're telling them to call the non-emergency number." I pass that along. I think it's happening. I think that message to the community is getting out there, but a general presence of in some of these areas I think is warranted, and that discussion needs to be had. And I just want to know how to help you get it ultimately.
We are trying, and I'll go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. The past month, I have noticed that we're getting more and more trespassing calls on people's private properties. So starting today, effective today, Christian, will you and Karen go ahead and stand up? These two officers that are standing up, they will work Monday through Friday, mainly when the majority of our businesses are open, and their focus will be on trespassing on private property. That is what they're going to focus on, trespassing on private property. They will work with business owners. We will create trespass programs, whatever we got to do for people can go to work and do things on their own private property.
Well, I'd like to chime in, but what Councilman Waddell has just shared is that there is a level of frustration with what we're seeing with some of these folks that are committing these trespassing issues, intoxication issues, where they're hanging out, where they're going, they're affecting people's lives, businesses, what have you. And I'm a firm believer that we're not going to rest ourselves out of this issue. I know that for a fact. But what I do think is important, Tony, is that we convene, because we still, I really like to have a very clear understanding and picture of the homeless advocacy groups that we're supporting financially, because there's several of them. And I know that we had the 10-year plan in homelessness, and I know that it's under a certain organization. I'd like for them to be at the table, and a lot of the homeless advocates that are, and the providers that are providing a lot of the services in our community, number one. I really need the 5th Judicial District here, the chief judge, district court judge, the DA's office in here, because there's First Amendment issues that we're contending with, private property issues, public property issues, what you can do if these police officers are arresting people for whatever known reason. If we're going to send them over here to the courthouse and they're going to just, we're going to dismiss the case because it doesn't meet that. I think we all need to be aware of that, and the citizens need to be aware of it, because a lot of them think that the way we're going to get out of this problem is just arrest them and get them off the street, and that's not the issue, because I also need the sheriff there, because he's also got the jail, and how long you can keep them in jail, what happens after that. I really do need to see if we can get the hospital involved in this, because that's another issue in what's going on over there at the hospital, because I'm hearing it from the medical community too, when they're going over there and taking them to the emergency room, and the resources that we're spending in that particular order. And I think that we all need to sit here in this particular room and convene, just like we did with the opioid issues, and when we came together as a community and as a region with our state legislators, with our county partners, and with the city, sitting in here all talking to one another and find out what everybody is doing, and let's find out what the issue is, because I know there's going to be more resources that are needed, but how we attack this issue is not just from policing. That's part of the issue. It's going to involve a lot of different people there, and we haven't had a real clear understanding as to how this whole process rolls out. I mean, we get bits and pieces of it, but we don't have the whole issue under our where we can really take a look at it and see what everybody is doing and how everybody's operating with each other. And I just think we need to do that sooner than later, because as the community continues to grow, as the region continues to grow, since we are providing tremendous amount of services in New Hanover County and the city of Wilmington, a lot of the surrounding areas, we're also attracting a lot of those folks that find themselves in an unsheltered situation. So I think we really need a comprehensive overall look at this, and then really start talking about some specific strategies of what we can each do in the areas and in the fields that we represent in supporting the initiatives that we need to get handled on this issue, because you can move them from one area to another. And that's primarily what's happened here in a lot of cases. And when you move them to another area, you wait a couple of days and you find out where they've moved to. And I can guarantee you they're probably in every stitch of woods that is left in New Hanover County, the city of Wilmington. They're somewhere. And it comes up to light when we have issues. And everybody's been inundated with this. So I really think we need everybody at the table. And we need to have a really good, open discussion about how we're going to effectively start handling these issues moving forward, because I do not see this thing slowing down. As the area continues to grow, that population will also continue to grow. So I don't know when you could put that together, but I know that Tom knows a lot of the advocacy groups and the folks out there, but I need a comprehensive overall group, and we need to meet right in here, just like we did with the opioids, and talk to one another.
We'll put a list of groups together that we think might be able to facilitate that type of discussion, share that with the council, and see if there are folks that you would like to include, not include, or include from there on.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Thought the mayor was spot on there. I guess I was about to, I got invited to a meeting with several citizens, got on me to come with them to meet with the district attorney a week or two ago, and to see if he was along the lines of Luke's idea or Luke's comments. Is he on board? You know, what are they willing to do? And he had some ideas, and just want I would assume, but I hope that you're the police department and yourself are working with him and trying to figure out ways to combat what Councilman Waddell was talking about. He had he's much better, as you know at communicating than I am, but he had some ideas along the lines of some of the things we did with they're way different, so I hate to even bring the correlation, but the way we address confronting some of the gang issues and just communicate, I'll let the DA speak to that further, but it was more about meeting them halfway, if you will, and having discussions face to face. So I just want to advocate that we do work together with all the other groups, the district attorney and the groups that the mayor mentioned, and I hope, and I know most of these groups that are advocacy groups and the groups that we help support are doing a tremendous job. And it's probably time to hear from them, because they must be overwhelmed, because it just seems like it's bigger and it's a greater problem than at any point I recall. And I'd be curious to see those numbers from them and what they're facing, because it sure feels different. Thanks.
Can I chime in right here?
Sure.
And the mayor, Mr. Mayor, you made a good point. We do need to sit down and have a discussion about things that are going on in our community as it relates to people in our community, whether it be people without permanent housing, whether it be people that have illegal guns, whether it be people, just people in general who live within the city limits and who come through our city limits. But there's just something in me that gets so disturbed when I hear us say this gang issue, gang issue, gang issue. And it's been a hot button topic for so long, but I think what we've done is we've made it an excuse. Oh, we can't do this because of gangs, or we're doing this because of gangs. But a lot of times when I look at some of the stories that are being talked about as it relates to the issues in our community concerning guns and gun violence, it's simple disputes. But it's simple disputes that involve people in, I don't know, different, maybe they are in gangs, but the issues that they have aren't gang issues. They're not fighting over turf. They're just fighting, or they've had issues. They have a history of issues with one another. And so when they see one another, they try to come to a solution. And it's not a positive solution, it's a negative solution. But what it does is it creates fear in our community. And I've talked to the chief plenty of times about this, of when we talk about these issues, we need to give more of a backstory. We don't need to make the citizens of our community feel like we live in gangland. We don't. If there are guns in Creekwood and guns in Houston Mall, there are guns in Landfall. There are guns in Echo Farms. There are guns in every inch of this community. We have to quit using certain people as the poster children or poster people for gang activity. It's unfair. And I personally feel upset about it every time I hear it. And I do know why. I don't like it. The other part is this, the homeless population. Mr. Mayor said it absolutely right. Where are we pushing it? So we, as a governing body, when we talked about redoing the information center on the boardwalk or the riverfront, we knew that we were going to push that population somewhere else. And they went from the Riverwalk to the library. And then from the library, it's just taking over all over Wilmington. But there are some people in our community who feel more entitled than others. And they are okay with the push of certain folks to certain areas in this community. I think that's unfair. I think that anytime a person can just call a council member that they know and complain, instead of calling a non-emergency number or contacting an organization or anything that's positive, it gives the sense of entitlement. And it makes people feel like they're not a part of this community. And that angers me as well. So what will we do as a governing body that we say we serve every citizen in this community? Not just the ones who are in the same tax bracket as us, not the ones that we do business with, every single person in this community.
Agree.
All right, Dylan, could we go to the community policing slides? Yes. All right. Community policing versus community engagement. Next slide. What has community policing looked like the past 30 years for this city? Basically, community policing is a philosophy that promotes organizational strategies which support the systematic use of partnerships and problem-solving techniques to proactively address the immediate conditions that give rise to public safety issues such as crime, social disorder, and the fear of crime. Normally with community policing, it is an agency-wide philosophy, and it is normally decentralized. Community engagement, which is something different, community engagement is the proactive engagement of the community through forums, events, meetings, and participation in community functions. This is done outside of traditional law enforcement or calls for service, with trust building as the foundation. Next slide. So what does community policing and engagement look like over the past 30 years for the WPD? Next slide. We implemented a community policing philosophy citywide in 1992 through 4 neighborhood area base stations. This model went away in the late 90s. After mass annexations took place in the late 90s, the city was further divided into 2 larger patrol zones. Since then, there have been several initiatives on smaller scales that attempted portions of community policing. Next slide. A base station was established at 29 South Kerr Avenue in 1997. For several years, it operated at the current location of Progressive Insurance. I think that's what's there now. And several officers work from this location. Next slide. This is part of the reason I became a Wilmington police officer. The department had officers assigned to the Wilmington Housing Authority communities in the 80s and the 90s. This program went away in the mid-90s. The program was established with a sergeant and 2 officers working in Nesbitt Courts in 2004. I was that sergeant that was tasked with reestablishing this program in 2004. In 2007, next slide. In 2007, the agency transitioned to geographical-based policing. The city was divided into 4 areas with lieutenants serving as coordinators over each area. On paper, the officers were assigned to specific areas, but the reality of the calls for service and the daily demands drove the officers to wherever they were needed throughout the city. On paper, we said we were doing neighborhood-driven policing and they were working these areas. The reality of it is they went where the calls for service took us at. And I know because I was one of those 4 lieutenants that was originally tasked with working this program. Around 2008, we experimented with a neighborhood improvement team in which police personnel worked with solid waste personnel in pockets of the city most impacted by violent crime. In 2008, the Southeast Patrol building on College Road opened. The patrol division was split into 2 patrol divisions. Again, on paper, the officers were assigned to small areas, but the reality was they went wherever the calls for service took them at. Next slide. Around 2007, a small downtown unit was established, and the Wilmington Housing Authority program was more formalized. With these programs, the same officers worked in the same areas all the time. The areas were smaller and more manageable than the other areas. These areas are the closest thing we have that model true community policing versus traditional police response. In 2011, we added the Sheriff's Office to this program, and in late 2013, the Sheriff's Office joined the Housing Authority program. In 2014, the downtown program was more formalized with a space in the downtown office being created in a parking deck. We actually moved the office downtown to the parking deck. And in 2014, a walking beat of 2 to 3 officers were assigned for daytime patrol in the area of District 3, which was one of our high crime districts. That program still exists today, but I have had to expand those 2 officers. They not only work District 3, they're now part of the community engagement team, and due to the shortages, we're using them citywide to help engage our community, not just in District 3. Next slide. In June of 2014, Chief Evangelist made a presentation to council for the addition of 13 personnel for District 3 to replicate the community policing efforts downtown and in the housing authority communities. That proposal at the time was $1.3 million. It was never funded. Today, that proposal would be well over $2 million. To implement a model like downtown in the WHA community citywide would require the addition of at least 126 police officers, support personnel, and supervisors. We have to deal with those calls for service that come in every single day. There are a lot of proactive things that I would love to do and we would be able to do if we didn't have 300 to 500 calls to have to contend with. Adding this many additional officers would also impact city IT. It's going to definitely impact fleet because you're going to add more vehicles and other city services. The annual cost would be somewhere between $15 to $20 million the first year to do all 6 districts. If we did this by district over a 6-year period, we're looking at $2 to $4 million a year for each district that is added. Hiring 126 personnel at one time or 21 additional each year in our current environment is going to be a challenge. Next slide. Our current model that we're under. On January 7, 2019, under the leadership of Chief Evangelist, the agency reorganized and we eliminated the 2 patrol divisions established in 2008 and placed all patrol personnel in one uniform patrol division. We've been doing this since 2019. Personnel still work from either the southeast or the northwest side of the city. 2 assistant division commanders positions were created to coordinate direct responses to ongoing community issues. With the current resources we have, daily reactive citizen calls for service drives the bulk of our operation. As I noted earlier, it doesn't stop. It comes in 24 hours a day. Matter of fact, Pastor Barnett had the opportunity to ride with me last month, and he got to see it firsthand what happens in this city late night. Next slide. Beats 1C and 3A. This is the area around New Hanover High School, Williston, and Gregory. So I had Barry Coburn pull the stats from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, just looking at the daytime calls. In 2017, we ran 7,000 calls, 2018, 7,800, 2019, 6,700, 2020, 6,900, and it's been going down ever since. 2021, we ran 6,500 calls over there. Last year, we ran 5,600 calls over there. In the first 6 months of the year, we've only run 2,600. Looking at the Part 1 crime in that area, in 2017, we had 168 incidents. 2018, 213, 2019, 145, and it's gone down ever since. Last year, we only had 88 incidents over there. So numbers are going down in those areas. Next slide.
On that last slide, if you could go back, Dylan. So just to compare, I mean, is this, I guess these are 2 different beats. I mean, is 5,600 high, medium, low in terms of comparing to others?
I didn't run the stats on other beats. We just looked at these. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can get that answer for you, and I don't want to give you bad information. But basically, 1C is the north side of the school, everything that's on the north side of Market Street, because that's where District 1 and District 3 split. They split at Market Street. Half of New Hanover is in 1 Charlie, and the other half of New Hanover is in 3 Alpha. So we just ran the entire districts.
So the area over where the track and practice facilities and Williston, that is in
3 Alpha.
3, okay.
3 Alpha runs from Market Street to Castle Street.
Okay, thank you.
And then any questions? I think the questions is the next one about community policing. And I will say, to touch on what Councilmember Spears asked earlier, community engagement is very, very important to me. We've had to make some hard decisions these past couple of years, and we really can't do it the way that I would like to see us do it because we don't have the resources, but we do try to go the extra. Every Saturday, our folks are out at Cars and Coffee at the Point. That is a great opportunity for us to connect with car enthusiasts. We try to take different vehicles there. We're involved in our youth programs. You approved us using asset forfeiture funds last year to buy this great community engagement trailer. We take the trailer out, we try to serve the community. Deputy Chief Hargrove, who is a piler in this community, he actually starts today, and his task will be to build upon those relationships, with community engagement being a key focus of what he'll do each and every day. We just finished up our second cop camp last week. That program's been around. We do our Santa Cop programs. I don't get out as much as I would like to, but again, we try. We have officers that are involved in so many different things, and they're doing a lot of the stuff on their own time, and in some cases on their own dime.
Chief, in respect to the community policing, obviously, the way you solve crimes predominantly is through citizens.
Yes.
Picking up the telephone, texting a tip, or whatever the case may be, personal relationships with your officers or whoever's out there in the field that they have built up over the years. Do you find that as, in the last couple of years, has it been more where citizens are more active coming forward and giving you that information, or sharing information with you, or talking with you, or at least talking to you about a perception of a possible issue that may be arising in the community, where they see something out there that may not be right, or something that they think that in the future will be a problem, where you're having that engagement? Or is it more reactionary when you have an incident or situation where somebody's trying to get in touch with you? If it was, if the perfect scenario for you would be what?
Citizens reaching out to us, telling us this stuff when it's brewing, before it even happens, before we could, and that would allow us to get personnel in the area to prevent it from happening. And we've gotten lucky a few times and had that, where citizens will see something happening. Matter of fact, it happened a few weeks ago. A citizen knew that something bad was about to happen. That citizen felt comfortable reaching out to someone in the department, and that person in the department was able to reach out to the right folks in the agency, and they ended up making a pretty impactful arrest.
And you find that it's been more forthcoming in the
Yes,
last
I think and I think it will get even more forthcoming here in the near future.
Okay, very good. Yes, sir. Hold on. Councilman Barnett.
Going back to the Haynes Lacewell Training Facility, I remember when we did the open house and stuff, one of the things that was mentioned was that this would be an opportunity for community to use that facility. I'm just curious, are we using it?
Yes, August the 9th, we'll be teaching that women's self-defense class there every Wednesday. Okay. So that's one of the divisions. When we built that facility, we wanted to be able to teach self-defense classes. So that's one of the things that we will be doing there. Our Citizens Academies are based there. We've had very few requests from community groups that requested to use it, but if they want to use it, we'll make it available to them.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Does the community in that vicinity, could they use the facility for just a meeting of?
Yes.
Okay, very
Yep.
good. Very good. Yes, sir. Mr. Anderson.
Chief, you appreciate your covering the community policing. That was something I know I'd ask you about before. I guess your numbers and looking at the costs and so forth of doing it citywide. I appreciate that. I am curious. I guess the closest, as you've told me before, downtown and then in the public housing is the closest we come to that. I believe, and I would assume the case that some districts are more suited for, community policing than others, from the standpoint of there are just more people out and about. You're going to engage people more where there's more pedestrians, where there's more, I don't know, is there a district, rather than looking at it holistic, the whole city, is there another area or two or three where that would work, or you just feel like it's either all or none, so to speak?
I think District 3 has a lot of potential for it, and it's a smaller district. Three,
I
just
don't
to
know,
give you an
help me,
example.
where is that?
And I'm going to share the boundaries
Okay.
with you. Market Street to Greenfield Street, Market to Greenfield, and then Fifth Avenue, and the east side of it gets a little squirrely because part of it runs all the way out to Forest Hills. But I think that area would be suited, and it would be a nice place to start if we looked at doing it. I also think that area would be ideal for those e-bikes, that you could pretty much cover, because District 3 is split into two beats. You have 3A that stops at Castle Street, and it picks up at Castle and goes over to Greenfield Street. And I think that area would be perfect to put officers in those areas during the daytime on e-bikes, which we're going to try that with some of the community engagement officers just to see what we get out of it.
Well, I think the community engagement initiative idea, it's definitely super efficient, so I can appreciate that route with the situation we've had being down on officers for sure. And not that it shouldn't be the case all the time, but I do love to, as time progresses, and I mean, I'd love to see us test that.
Okay. All right, Dylan, final one from me. Mid-year crime update. Next slide. Looking at our Part 1 crime, murder is down by 44% the first 6 months of the year. Rape is down by 45%. Robbery is up by 20%. And included in that subcategory of commercial robberies, they're down by 27%. Individual robberies are up by 33%. And assaults are down by 9%. So violent crime the first 6 months of the year is down by 10%. Down by 10%. Not looking so good on property crime, and we noticed this a few months ago, and that's why we recently did the public service announcements. I think we asked the mayor to take part in that with us. Burglaries are up by 42%. Looking at the subcategories, residentials were 31% and non-residentials were 65%. Larcenies are up by 28%. Auto thefts are up by 26%, and arsons are down by 33%. Property crime's up by 29%, and overall Part 1 crime the first 6 months of the year is up by 23%. But keep in mind, it's the first 6 months. It may look totally different in January when we do the more in-depth presentation. This here is just a snapshot. Next slide. How does violent crime compare? Looking at it from 2017 to 2018, 2019, 2020 was a brutal year. It's been trending downward. Violent crime is at its lowest level in the last 7 years. Violent crime is, and we have put a lot of emphasis and focus in on violent crime and trying to be in those right places at the right time. Next slide. Property crime, on the other hand, is at the highest level in the last 7 years based on the first 6 months. This is the increase from 2022 to 2023. The main reason for this increase was breaking and entering to automobiles and larceny from automobiles. They're up 24%. Breaking and enterings and burglaries have increased by 42% from last year. Next slide. Our arrests have increased by 32%. So we're arresting folks that are committing these crimes. A few weeks ago, one of our young patrol officers was in the right place at the right time, came across one of these guys. He was about to break in the car, figured out he had been involved in numerous B&Es, and we cleared a bunch of cases that week. And we ended up getting a couple of more. And then I think Sergeant Irving there in the back of the room, I'm not going to put him out there, but he ended up getting one breaking in a vehicle. So we're arresting people. We're doing what we need to do on our end, but arrest, as you said earlier with the other situation, we can't arrest our way just out of this. Prevention is the other part of this. We got to prevent this stuff from happening. And this was interesting when Barry threw this number out there. And breaking and entering of autos and larcenies from the autos, only 6% of the cases used force. That means 90% of these vehicles are unlocked. People are leaving cars unlocked, and they're pulling door handles and they're getting in. And I cannot stress this enough that we're asking folks to lock their vehicles or try to remember to lock their vehicles. We're human. I've forgetting to lock my vehicle on a time or two. But it's real important when you have a gun in the vehicle, because that's how a lot of these guns are getting out there in the field. I was amazed at the number of people that store their guns in their vehicles overnight. All right, next slide. Questions?
Any questions? Everybody good? Everybody good? Okay,
Homeless group will be next.
Wait 1 second.
go ahead.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
Please don't take your e-bike in the mall. You're gonna have people taking their bikes in the mall, and then what? You started it, all right?
Yeah,
Take your e-bike up outside, Chief.
yeah, but I think it would be very comical for the chief of police to lose a $5,500 bicycle that he's responsible for. So I had to take it to where I could see it the whole time.
Well, your staff should be able to find your bike should it be stolen.
Chief Williams, did you have something to say about the homeless?
Yes, sir. The homeless outreach team, Sergeant Evans and Caitlin, will come up and they'll present their portion of the presentation.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr.
morning.
Mayor, members of council. We want to take a moment to just say thank you so much for allowing us to come give you a quick progress update on the Getting Home Street outreach team. I'm Caitlin Maddox. I am the social work supervisor from the New Hanover County side.
Sergeant Ron Evans with the Police Department.
So ultimately, our program is a partnership that is between the New Hanover County Mental Health Services and the City of Wilmington Police Department. Our mission is to prepare unsheltered residents for shelter or rehoming by connecting them to service provision and enhancing public safety at the same time. We are striving to keep and maintain clean and safe areas, primarily where those homeless folks gather. So our social work side of the team was fully staffed by December of '22. We didn't get our last Wilmington police officer appointed to the team until February of '23. We have had a couple delays as well in getting the WPD trucks outfitted and on the street, and we are still working on a permanent office space. We do want to take a moment to recognize some of the team members that are helping us pull off what we're about to talk about. Unfortunately, none of our social work team members could be here. They do have prior appointments with clients, but I want to recognize Renee Steele, Alan Bowden, Lee Ilse, and T.R. Nunley. We also have some of our officers here.
So in the back of the room, Corporal Melanie Medlock is a part of the team. Officer Doug Costello, he's a member of our team. Officer Kiana Moore, she is not here. She just worked this past weekend because this operation is a 7-day-a-week. So she worked this past weekend, so she's off today. And as Chief mentioned earlier, Officer Christian Marshall and Officer Karen Miller, Corporal Christian Marshall and Officer Karen Miller, who are in the back as well, just started with the team today.
So, as far as the division of roles and how our partnership works, our social workers are there to assess the needs of each homeless individual. We are helping arrange the provision of services, including transportation to those services. We help follow up to ensure that they've been able to utilize the different service providers and achieve what they're looking to get as their goals, and we're tracking that progress, compiling data, and working in collaboration with other community service providers, such as Wilmington Downtown Inc., the Block by Block, other homeless service providers in the community, such as shelters and things like that.
So the officers that we're using, some of the officers already have relationships with some of the population that we're dealing with. So that was a plus for us when this team was first initiated. Establishing rapport with the homeless population, referred to them the services, and as far as establishing rapport, a good positive thing about the team that we have on the law enforcement side is that 3 of the officers, to include myself, are already members of our hostage and crisis negotiation team. So when it comes time to talk people, de-escalating situations, all of the officers across the department already have that training, but those that are part of the negotiation team have sort of more advanced training in speaking with folks. Utilizing traditional community engagement events, identifying underlying conditions for formulating plans to address those issues. These social workers with Health and Human Services that we are working in hand with, we ensure their safety as well as we're going out into different encampments within the community, within the city and the county. Enforcement compliance with laws, policies, and ordinances. And I know some discussion has been talked about that before, primarily with the trespassing, and just like the chief mentioned, with Corporal Marshall and Officer Miller joining the team. And then other duties assigned by the chief and our leadership as far as what they would like us to do when we're out in the field.
So, one of the most important themes of our team is that change comes at the speed of trust. So over the last 6 months, we have been doing outreach and building relationships with some of our community's most guarded, distrustful individuals, and that takes time. But that progress does include the fact that we are learning the stories of their backgrounds and how they've gotten where they are. We're assessing their needs, and then again, helping link and transport them to service as their self-determined goals are established. So we do have some numbers. We chose to focus on January through June for you. So 94 times we have helped people access shelter. So I do want to point out one particularly high month, that's February. That was actually one of the times that the warming shelter opened in town. That's if 2 nights in a row the temperature is 30 degrees or below. There are additional shelter beds that are made accessible, and we literally made loops around town to find anyone we could to try to bring them into safety on those evenings. So that month is particularly high, but we have connected 94 people to overnight or long-term shelter. So we have helped 13 people access permanent housing. I'm going to piggyback on that and say that we have 14 people that we have helped reunify with family or a former support system. Oftentimes, given the availability of housing in our community, trying to reconnect them to former support is often our most likely and creative solution to trying to help them find shelter. While those numbers seem small, again, these are big, big things to try to overcome with our folks, and with the lack of affordable housing, it does end up being difficult, particularly people who might be on disability or have no income, to find any type of permanent housing option for them. We have helped 24 people access treatment for alcohol or substance abuse. Again, you see that number high in February, as that was when we had the opening of the Healing Place in our community. We have connected 37 people to employment services or employment in conjunction with community partners like Link, Step Up, NC Works, things like that. So we have also helped link people to tangible and intangible items throughout different service providers and based on their needs. So those tangible services might be anything like getting them IDs, documentation, rent or deposit assistance, taking them to get their prescriptions, helping them access a meal or a shower, getting food stamps, Medicaid, bus passes, clothing, furnishings, anything like that. And you can see that number is pretty astounding. We've done that 750 times January through June. We also link folks to intangible services. So those are going to be those needs assessments that we're providing to them, connecting them to mental health services, perhaps the doctor, helping transport them back and forth to AA or NA meetings. We're helping them with legal and court assistance. That might even be as subtle as just making it to their court appointment, and us helping have that on our calendar and remind them a couple days out and then make sure that they get there. Social Security, and then community support. So those might be community events, that might be faith-based events, anything that can help them with their social and emotional well-being as well. So we like to humanize some of those numbers that you just saw before you. And one success story that we had was with a person who it took months of gaining his trust before he finally felt comfortable enough to accept our assistance. He had actually served in the Navy for 4 years, and he has been eligible for VA benefits for over a decade, but he wasn't utilizing that system because of how litigious and intimidating it can be. So he agreed to go with one of our social workers to the New Hanover County Veterans Services. You can see him in his appointment right there. And he learned that he's going to gain a monthly benefit of at least $330, potentially more. We then helped with the follow-through on all the different medical appointments that he needed to have. So we took him to get his VA pension benefits, his disability level determination, get his military ID. We've helped establish a primary care physician for him. He's been connected to the VA social worker for homeless vets, and we have scheduled dental, vision, and hearing appointments for him, which are in the months to come. So one thing that he actually shared with us is that he was so grateful when he found out about his benefit that we were able to convince him to go to the appointment. And that's, again, just that trust and bridging that gap to some of those systems that can be very intimidating. So, as I mentioned, one of our missions is to help maintain a clean and safe, initially downtown area. We've since expanded. But one of the ways that we've done that, and some of the things that we've learned while we've been out on the street, is that a lot of our generous citizens want to help our folks. They see a congregation of people, and they bring donations directly to them. That might be a bag of clothes. That might be a sheet pan of meals. But ultimately, unfortunately, a lot of what that does is actually contribute to the waste. So a person might see when that donation gets dropped off, grab a couple of items out of it, but then it might rain, or it gets soiled, or it just gets left and abandoned. So what our team started doing is intercepting those donations and rerouting them to the service providers that would be able to accept those donations as soon as one of those individuals said they needed a new pair of boots, a coat, access to a meal. We will help take them directly to the service provider. So you can see that we've been able to do that 43 times, 43 bags of donations that we've been able to get to the service providers themselves. We've also literally done that with perishable donations, AKA trash, meals. So 55 times our team has bagged up trash and brought it back and been able to dispose of it properly, as opposed to allowing it to stay out in that visible area. So one of our creative ideas early on to help aid in this same idea of the visual aesthetic of the places that folks are gathering was to open what we call our bin den. It's actually a storage unit that we can offer to unsheltered individuals as a free place to safely store their belongings. Unfortunately, a lot of our population deals with larceny, theft, not to mention just the kind of annoyingness of having to carry around everything that you own. And so they can actually access that unit morning and evening, so they can put their belongings away in the morning and then take them back out in the evening, which helps free them up to go to employment, get to their doctor's appointments, again, just be able to get around town. So over the time since we've opened the unit, we've had 48 new participants join the bin den, and that 569 times we've had folks access their belongings. So that's literally trips by our team going and getting the belongings. It's all anonymous in the unit so that no one knows who's utilizing the services, and we'll help bring them their bin. They can take in or put out what they'd like, and then we'll get that back for them. So 570 times we've accessed our unit, and we currently have 27 people participating in the bin den. So again, this can be the short-term, like daily access, or we do have folks, for example, who are going through that long-term recovery process at the healing place, and we can help safely store their belongings for them while they're seeking treatment and recovery.
Since the inception of this unit back in December, January, like I said before, our schedule is 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. So our officers and the social workers are having interaction with the population all day, every day for the most part. So I'm sure you can already imagine, especially for those who may be going through some type of mental crisis or drug abuse or domestic abuse or whatever the case may be. It's unfortunate for some of them that life has, taken a hard left turn for them already. So there are going to be instances where, they're just not having a good day on top of the bad day they're already having. That being said, there have been a number of times throughout the past 6 months, 61 times, over 60 times, that we were able to intervene with whatever issue they may be having for that day. So the social worker and the officer working together will be able to de-escalate whatever type of situation they have going on, and then try to get them in a better mind frame so, there won't be someone has to go to jail or get a citation for fighting or something of that nature. 56 times, and that number is just a little bit higher, I'm thinking if you're not counting July, but 56 times there were instances where calls had come into the 911 center and our patrol officers responded, realizing that the person that they were dealing with was unsheltered, so they called someone from our team. And our team was able to go and assist them in getting that issue rectified. Like Caitlin was talking about with the success stories, and I won't read this verbatim, but it just goes to show that what we're doing is working. Maybe few and far between. This incident here, a young lady was, she was actually in a car. She was sleeping in her car. One of our patrol officers came across her and found out that she was homeless and she had been sleeping in her car for a while. And she turned out to be someone who was dealing with domestic abuse. I believe she had some mental abuse, a mental illness, and then possibly some drug abuse going on in her life. So the patrol officer contacted one of our team members, one of the officers on the team, as well as the social worker. So they went over there, they made contact with this young lady. They decided to make some phone calls, and they had to work on this for a while as far as contacting different domestic violence shelters, not only here in New Hanover, but Brunswick and Pender County as well. It took a while. They just said, we don't have any room. Fortunately, we were able to get in contact with folks over at the Healing Place, and they were able to get her a bed, and she was reluctant to at first, but then ultimately decided to be a part of their drug abuse program. So she entered into that program, and to this day, if I'm not mistaken, I believe she is still in the program over the Healing Place. I'm not sure who the social worker was that was with them that day. I can't remember.
So a great example is that it was actually one of our male officers who responded with our police partner, and after learning about her situation, he agreed and recognized that a male intervention might not be the best for her, so instead we called in the female that was on shift. So that was Alan Bowden and Renee Steele, and we recognized that she might work better and have a better rapport with a female social worker.
So again, when we first started, this initiation first started back a few months ago, of course we were concentrated in the downtown area, which we still are concentrated in the downtown area, but like Caitlin said, we've expanded to different areas across the city and the county. February 1st, North Carolina Department of Transportation decided to come on board and enforce trespassing under the Meadowlark-Lemon Bridge, which then caused some of the population to go back into the immediate downtown area near the library. As you're aware, back in February, county commissioners decided to pass ordinances not allowing people to sleep beyond the property, and that moved them as well from that area. So it moved a lot of the population out of the downtown area, and that was back in February. This calls for them to move to different encampments. And Mr. Mayor, I believe you mentioned earlier about the number of people that are in different wooded areas on different private property. We've identified some of those encampments. Fortunately, we were able to take the Deputy City Manager, Mr. Moten, with us out to the MLK and Kerr encampment a week or two ago. So like I said, we're still concentrated on the downtown area, but there are a significant amount of places in woods that are owned by private property or different entities that we are looking in there. So we're looking for new persons that we may not have any interaction with, and then also some of the population that we've already developed relationships with from the population that was in the downtown area. It is common knowledge, there is no secret, we need housing, we need shelter in this area. So that's one of the challenges that we are facing when it comes to bed and affordable housings. Some of the different encampments throughout the areas, it's challenging especially when it comes to some of the bigger areas. A part of the encampment at Kerr and MLK, that property is owned by Duke Energy, some of it is owned by DOT, some of it is owned by the Cameron family. Again, to Mr. Mayor's point, as far as getting everyone to come to the table, property owners, private owners, different businesses, we have come across some cases where we have had interaction with some property owners. I don't want to say they don't necessarily care that people are on their property, but they are, sort of kind of reluctant to say, they're fine, it's okay, I'm not really worried about it. That's few and far between, but it does happen. So we're looking at that as well. Trespassing, just piggybacking again on the chief with additional addition of the 2 officers when it comes to trespassing on private properties. And then, like I mentioned before, Corporal Marshall and Officer Miller will be those officers that go out and enforce trespassing and answering those calls and emails that we've been getting over the past couple of months. And it will be a no-nonsense approach, if you will. The chief has given the directive, while it's not a crime to be homeless or unsheltered, it does not necessarily, give folks free rein to wreak havoc on private property and cause destruction and maybe theft or whatever the case may be. So these officers have that specific task of going out and responding to some of those areas and complaints to deal with those folks. I'm sorry. Okay. That's it. Any questions?
Just in time.
Sure.
First, I want to thank y'all for this report. It's important, the work you're doing. I want to thank you for the service to the community. I have tremendous amount of faith in the Getting Home program and have been a proponent of it, I guess, since its inception. I think the numbers that you guys are showing here are evidence of its success, and I think it's just going to continue to be a successful program. I want to make sure that it has everything that you need for it to continue to be successful, and increasingly so. I think everybody up here likely agrees with that, and so I want to make sure you guys and the chief and let us know what you see and what you need, because again, I have faith in it. The numbers don't lie. It's working. We're assisting people. We're connecting them with services that are readily available, just getting them to them. One question, as we do expand these services, out of the city and into the county, are we anticipating any sort of collaboration with the Sheriff's Department as this program grows?
Yes, so on the social work side of things, we have had conversations with the Sheriff's Office about joining our social workers as we venture out into unincorporated areas. We are being calculated as we move out into different areas, given the different natures and dynamics of each sort of gathering. And so for right now, we're continuing to focus on areas that are within the incorporated area, but we do, are looking forward to those sort of future planning.
Sure.
For starters, thank you for being here and for your presentation. You're both super impressive people, and I'm sure the rest of the folks working with you are as well. It's probably well, not for the social worker side, but for a police officer, but kind of probably not exactly what it thought he'd be doing, but it's certainly helping our community and greatly appreciated. I guess one thing, and you talk about follow-up, and y'all talk about communicating with folks. I mean, is it that easy to find them again? I mean, I guess that's, to me, would seem, I guess if they find a spot, they stay in the spot until they get moved, or can you just kind of address that? How is that, I'm sure that's a challenge.
It does continue to pose a challenge given the demographics and the population that we're working with. We do work to try to get people's cell phones when possible, right? So again, sometimes larceny can happen, they get lost, it gets rained on, they might lose a cell phone. We can help them apply for a new one. One kind of creative approach is just helping people sign up for an email address. right? At least with an email address, you can't really lose it. You can go to the library, get online, and we can still have a way to contact them. And then to your point, sometimes it's literally just geographic location. We have a plan to meet up with someone in one area and they're not there for any number of reasons, and we spend our time trying to locate them. One of the really kind of cool and unique things about our team is that we are great at finding people. So we've helped with missing persons report. We've helped the ACT team who are looking for people who need to take their medication. We've helped Adult Protective Services locate people. So all of those times that we are just additional eyes and ears on the ground and can help with those sightings and recognizing where people are hanging out, where people are, and help, particularly when it comes time to connect them to a service, we can try to find them.
The storage bin, is that centrally located, or is that something where y'all kind of take it in from wherever you are, wherever you happen to be?
The individuals themselves don't go to the storage
okay,
unit
that's what I
for, again, that safety and security aspect, but it is centrally located, just so we're not spending too much time. We're utilizing the city storage on 4th and Red Cross.
I wonder if you address, I've got to believe this is, well, I'll let you address it. I get this narrative that from multiple citizens that the Healing Place is a magnet from other cities, that people are moving here because of it. Is that accurate?
I actually have had conversations with one gentleman who was living in some woods off of Wellington. And I forget the name of the town, sorry. I forget the name of the town, but it's about 3 hours away. And he did, in fact, tell me that, yes, the shelter or the Healing Place equivalent in the town that he was at bought him a one-way bus ticket here to specifically go to the Healing Place. Unfortunately, it did not work out for him there for one reason or another, and then he did end up moving into an encampment in the woods. So I have heard stories that since the Healing Place has opened, folks have traveled from different places from the state and even the country in some cases, specifically to try to seek treatment there.
Gotcha. Wonder if you might, I mean, not getting into the nitty gritty, but just kind of when you get say that, for example, the MLK in Carr, I guess is the most recent one I'm familiar with. When you get notified about that, what's the kind of blow by blow? I mean, I noticed going by there for a while, somebody had put a trailer out there to haul trash off. Is that you guys, or is that who's providing those kinds of services?
Yeah, sure.
So to answer the first part of your question, our team is pretty well aware of a lot of the places that encampments are starting to brew before they ever get to the point that they're visible to citizens or from the road or things like that. The second aspect is that there has been a lot of work from some of the other outreach teams in our community. So Jack Morris with WDI and Block by Block was already doing a great job with the downtown outreach. The PATH team through Coastal Horizons has an outreach team to help people with persistent and severe mental health. And so they were already out in that area, and they have done some work, again, going back to those sort of specific dynamics of each encampment. So I know that they were able to help coordinate Cape Fear River Watch is doing a trash haul off once a week from the MLK and Kerr encampment. So there's some, again, creative solutions in the play from different entities and everybody. And again, it's kind of unique to each encampment on what the property owners might allow for, what, the logistics are of each area. So that might be what you saw.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer. I would just, if you go back, like when you are called in, I guess you're saying you know about it ahead of time, so it's not really a process where you learn about it. But when you first engage an encampment, what does that look like? What's the checklist? How do you proceed?
It's an important thing to recognize that, you or I might have an apartment or a door where somebody's going to knock, and there's a very clear delineation of your personal space, right? And we don't have that when you're living unsheltered. So it's literally as simple as from further back, hey, knock, knock, we're the street outreach team. How you doing today? You know, we wanted to make sure that you knew that we were going to be around. Here's our card if you want to contact us. If there's anything that you want to work on, we're happy to help connect you to those services. And just like, again, going back to that trust issue, sometimes it just takes seeing our face and seeing our team a few times or consistently, and then a lot of times what we can do is almost hook with a small deliverable. So it might be a meal, it might be connection to clothing. Hey, you want to go get a shower? I'd be happy to go take you to a shower. And then that's really where we help build up into those, you know, someone's willingness to share their backstory with us and us do a full-blown needs assessment and help set up goals and case management processes with them.
So you're really not trying to necessarily, you're trying to, your focus is just helping each of these folks. So so then say a property owner wants to, I don't know the term, trespass, or they want them moved. That can't be easy. I mean, I don't know, how does that work? You just let them know and then kind of remind them? It's just, how does that process work?
It's case by case. If we make contact with the property owner, we will go out there with them, with that person, like, look, they don't want you here, you need to go ahead and leave. The vast majority of the time, property owners are willing to work with them, so they will give them a few hours or a day or two to go ahead and gather your belongings. Now, once that, you know, order, if you will, has been given, you need to leave, you need to go, this is your warning, that's it. The property owner calls us back, or an officer goes back on the property anytime after that, then normally it's, okay, it's time to take some action here. So you're going to get a citation, or you're going to get arrested for second-degree trespassing, and we'll have to deal with it from there. Anytime after that, the same thing. I mean, if you keep coming back to the same property to where you were told not to come back before, then unfortunately, you got to take a ride with us or receive some paperwork.
But I mean, it's a whack-a-mole thing. It's got to be. I mean, there's nowhere for them to go. You've mentioned there's no beds or no, you know, housing. I mean, you opened, I think, your first slide. So at that point, it's just really just dispersing them somewhere else.
Yes, sir.
One example I'd love to give is that there was a collection of people who were starting to gather at 7th Street in Martin. That is CSX-owned property. The railroad crosses right there through there. And because we had already had relationships established and we were kind of in the know of those conversations, when CSX decided that they did want to clear the property, our team was able to go out, and this information came at like 5:30 on a Friday, but because our team is 7 days a week, we were able to really just pivot and help go out and focus that weekend on notifying people, letting them know, helping give them time to pack up their belongings before it came in as a harsh or potentially ticketable message. But ultimately, we appreciate that because it helps us have our thumb on where they're going, so we don't lose contact with them if they disperse without our awareness of that. So it's certainly not ideal to just move from one place to the other, but at least that allows us to know where they are and potentially continue that case management with them and not lose the progress that we've already made.
All right. Thank you both for your insight. Greatly appreciate it.
Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Officer Evans, you mentioned that there was one person that said this organization is giving them a bus ticket to come here. I hear myths that people are saying, like cities like maybe Myrtle Beach are sending busloads of homeless people here. Do you find that to be true?
Those are rumors. I don't know that to be fact,
Okay.
If that's the case or not. Yes, sir.
All right. And then the second thing, I was going to ask, when you mentioned intercepting the bags of non-perishables, do you talk with the individuals that drop the bags off and try to get them connected with maybe doing it a better way?
As much as possible, absolutely. So our team was great at having my cards available, and so
Okay.
anytime, you know, and again, first and foremost, saying thank you. Thank you for the generosity.
Sure.
Thank you for your interest in helping these folks. We want to help them too. Here's a way that we can help do this a little bit more effectively, and I'll have that conversation with them, and then help explain the wonderful agencies in our community that are doing great work to support the individuals experiencing homelessness and to help funnel that generosity and those resources to the agencies themselves.
Okay. And then the last question, the number of people that you're helping, like these numbers that we're seeing here, when you get names and addresses, are they from all over the country, or do you find basically these, is there any statistic that say most of these folks are from Wilmington or North Carolina or from the surrounding?
I don't have that information exactly, but I can tell you it's a mix of all of it. We do hear from people who, you know, had spent part of their lives in another part of the area or state and have come here, but we also know people who have lived here their whole lives. Sometimes people get, you know, something happens, they have a one wrong turn or misstep in their life, and they lose the relationship with their family support, and that is part of what that catalyst is that gets them to where they are. So we want to hear their stories, we want to learn their stories, but it really is a mix from all over.
Okay. I've attended the river walk thing where they were talking about like trash, and they made this crazy statement that just hit me in my brain. They said because anytime you put a piece of trash on the ground, it will eventually end in the ocean. So I don't know if it's a wise idea or a bad idea to put maybe trash bins in those areas, or is that something you may have considered?
Ironically, we have a meeting tomorrow with the Director of Public Services to look into how they can assist us with trash pickup in certain areas.
Okay.
So we're gonna, that meeting's tomorrow, so we're gonna look into that.
All right, thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Thank
Good work.
Thank you.
We're looking more forward to more information.
Mr. Mayor, if you folks will just hang with us for a few more minutes, we've got an update from Meredith with regard to some signs that we're going to be putting up. She's been working with the folks from NCDOT, our own traffic engineering folks, and of course you've seen some of the "There Are Better Ways" signs that are up and about, and I think this will be more of a targeted approach for what you originally had anticipated.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Wanted to bring you just a quick update about what has been going on with regard to signage in the medians. What we have done so far is that we have worked with our city traffic engineering department to design a sign to present to NCDOT and their traffic engineer. City traffic engineering determined the locations for signs on city roads and NCDOT roads. And what we did was we went through and marked anywhere in the city, whether NCDOT roads or city roads, where the medians are less than 6 feet wide. We've had multiple discussions in the past when Mr. Joy was here as well about recent Supreme Court cases where they've said in other areas that 10 feet wide was not a safety issue, and the speech was more important than the size of the median. And so what we had to do was figure out, for us, what we decided was an actual safety issue, and where we thought that that balance would go more towards our favor. And what we came up with was 6 feet, and I'll tell you that the standard for NCDOT roads is 4 feet. So pretty much every NCDOT median in the city is going to meet this standard. A lot of our medians are much wider, some of them large grassy areas and things like that where they're more like 10 feet, 15, even 20 feet. But there are a lot of NCDOT roads, pretty much all of them, that are major highways where this is going to capture that area. And we feel like by saying 6 feet wide, that we can justify that as a safety issue, as opposed to, that will outweigh the need to allow the free speech in those areas. And so that's where we came up with the 6 feet wide. So we've determined where those roads are. The design for the signs and the locations for the NCDOT roads were submitted to NCDOT for preliminary approval. That has been granted. And so what we need to get from NCDOT is an encroachment agreement. They did say that they wanted us to put their signs on NCDOT roads in the shoulder as individuals who are walking are going into the intersections, as opposed to actual signs in the medians. Legally speaking, I don't believe that that's an issue, and so on the city roads, they will actually be in the medians. It's just an NCDOT preference. They prefer them to be in the shoulder. And so you'll notice we've got two different designs, and I'll show you one that you'll see in the median on the city roads and one that you'll see on the shoulder on the NCDOT roads. And so our traffic engineering department, based on the locations and the approval, has obtained quotes for the fabrication of those signs. That is approximately $35,000 to $40,000 for all the different signs that would go up throughout the city. So the city has signed that encroachment agreement. We're waiting for NCDOT to sign that and get it back to us before we do the fabrication, but we're hoping that will happen shortly. So this is just a general map of the locations throughout the city where there are narrow city medians on multi-lane roads that are less than 6 feet. So you can see it's kind of all over the city, and then a couple of concentrated areas. This is what the sign will look like. No stopping or standing on the median. It'll cite the general statute at the bottom that relates to that for safety reasons. And the sign will be 18 inches by 24 inches, which is the same size as a regular pedestrian sign. So it's not the same size as a speed limit sign, because those are designed to tell motorists what to do that are coming by in a zooming car. It's designed to be the size that you would see if you're a pedestrian. So this is the median installation example. So this is where city signs will be. It'll be backed up off the median some so that it won't interfere with sight lines, and our folks will be doing that installation once the signs are fabricated. Our city crews will be doing that. So that is where they will be in the medians on the city roads where we've got medians less than 6 feet. That is just a general list. We'll have 34 posts in general, 74 signs, so the signs will be front and back. So you can see them when you're coming from either direction. And this is where they will be located. I can send council after this presentation. I sent you a copy of the presentation this morning, but I can send you the actual lists and a copy of the signs and such after this presentation's over, so you'll have those lists available to you if you'd like. That's some more of where the city roads will be. And you can see this a lot more dots on this page. This is where the narrow NCDOT medians are. You can see along some of the major highways that you've got there, Oleander, Eastwood Road, Market Street and such. These are where your signs will be in those medians. This is an example of the shoulder design where the signs will be as you enter into the median. And as I mentioned, they'll be front and back, so if you are in the median or coming across the street the other direction, you can see it as well. So and you will have streets where there's an NCDOT road running one way and a city road running across it, and so you may see signs in the medians on the city street sign, but then signs on the shoulders as well on the NCDOT sign. So there will be some intersections where you can have up to 6 signs around. And so they will be prevalent at these intersections with the smaller medians. You will be able to see them. And this is just a list. Obviously, there are going to be a lot more. I mentioned 292 signs total for NCDOT roads. And so you put that with the 74, and you've got well over 350 to 400 signs that are going to be up over the entire city, which is the reason for the up to $40,000 fabrication fee. And so that's four pages. And again, I will send you out that list. So what is left to do? Again, I mentioned the city's already signed the encroachment agreement. We anticipate getting that signed back from NCDOT within a week. We'll have to do the fabrication of the signs, which is estimated to take about 4 to 6 weeks at $36,000 to $40,000 from what we've got now. The installation of the signs will be done in-house by city workers. That'll take 6 to 8 weeks for all the signs to go up, so they will start doing that in and along with their regular duties that they're doing every day when they're on those roads. They'll be putting them up. So it'll take 6 to 8 weeks for all of them to get up, but you'll start seeing them right away as soon as they start. And we need to provide those signs and locations and information to WPD. I've already spoken with the chief on multiple occasions regarding enforcement, and his plan currently is to give an initial warning to individuals who are in violation at these intersections where there are signs. So there will only be violations issued at the intersections where there are signs, because that's where the safety issues are. And so there'll be an initial warning, education about, from his folks about the regulations and what the signs are there for. And then if it occurs again, then there'll be a citation. And so, so that's kind of the general idea of what we're going to do right now. Any questions about that update? Yes, sir.
The last the nice man and nice lady that were up here giving that wonderful presentation, I mean, these people have got their chin stuck out there. I mean, here we are, we're homeless, or is that what their sign says? Is there any interaction on the part of your group? I'm speaking past you, I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Could you address that? Is there any interaction with any of these folks that we see standing in the medians?
Come on, come to the front, please.
Yes and no. The short answer is that just because you're out, we actually refer to them as opportunists. So just because you are out flying a sign does not actually imply that you're homeless. And so we typically look for opportunities to interact with them in a different capacity first. We do know some folks who do that. That being said, a lot of times we'll also, if we're driving by, just hand a business card out. And then that way they have the opportunity to contact our team if they are interested in working with us.
I know some of the groups appear to be very well organized as to placement, where they go, how long they're there. But I mean, they're either great actors and actresses, or they got some real issues to stand out in the 95-degree heat and whatever. And some have their pets. There was one the other day at the entrance going into Sam's Club where they had the whole family. And that's on private property. That won't be affected by what we're doing here. But I'm just more curious than anything, but it's a good answer. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Meredith, thank you so much for trying to find a way. I honestly seen so many close calls with big trucks and folks with their back turned to the traffic. Going to avoid hopefully we help avoid a major, tragedy kind of thing going down the road, down the way. The warning thing, I'm just curious. So in other words, it'll be like a warning citation. So you would have record of it. Because otherwise,
So the police
how
department.
do you know when you are just not giving out warning after warning? I mean, different officer, different day. I mean, how's that work?
So all these gentlemen behind me and ladies in the uniforms can probably correct me, but my understanding is that they'll fill out a field contact report. So there's not like an actual written warning that's a physical piece of paper that's given to them, but as far as I know, but it'll be an initial warning, a verbal warning. They'll make a contact report of who the individual is and where they saw them, that type of thing. And so it'll be in WPD's system so that the next officer that comes in contact with that same person will, they'll know that they've already been given the initial warning,
Okay, thank you.
I believe.
Okay. Anybody else?
At one time, we had talked about a sign that we were going to put up that said, like, give to so-and-so and so. Whatever happened to that?
So those signs are up as well.
They are now?
And they have gone up recently, and Mr. Patterson, I think, is here, and he can answer any questions that you have about where those are up. But they have gone up, and they do indicate and where to give, and that goes into initially to, I believe, the United Way. But
Right. That's it. I mean, I
But
don't
they
need
are
to
up.
extend it. Thanks.
yes.
I got a question about
Yes, sir.
those signs and them going to the United Way. What is it costing us for the United Way to handle those funds?
Yes, sir. If you'll wait just a second, Mr. Patterson's coming up to the podium.
I'm surprised Luke hadn't asked that question yet.
The question was, what is the cost to the city?
Yes.
We fabricated signs, had them placed, and it's been less than $500 that we've had to spend on those signs. We've also got an agreement with the United Way providing $10,000 for the initiation of the program. What that's going to do is it's going to allow us to cover all of the overhead expenses for a fairly prolonged period of time with the United Way, so that any dollar that is given by a community member or anybody through that giving portal is going to go 100% directly to the service providers. There's not going to be any overhead taken out of those dollars that come from the community, because the United Way and the City of Wilmington have jointly covered those fairly modest overhead-related costs.
So Jared, how does the person get them? Can anybody just go and get the money because it's been donated, or is it name specific? What's the inner workings?
As a part of our agreement with the United Way, the decision on how the dollars are allocated is 100% the purview of the United Way, based on their understanding of the needs and the organizations that are working in those spaces. We did specify a constellation of social needs that includes housing, nutrition, job readiness and placement, and substance abuse recovery, being those social needs that are most often demonstrated by folks who are soliciting funds on sidewalks and the streets. And so the United Way ultimately has 100% purview on how those dollars are going to be allocated in order to make the most effective use possible of those dollars.
So do you see how that might be problematic? If I can stand in the median and get various amounts of money to myself today and don't have to be at the discretion of a nonprofit organization, I'm not going to be discouraged from standing in the median, even with the sign that says it's against the law to stand in the median, or even with the sign that says, hey, go down to the United Way and get what someone would potentially give to you today, and get it when the United Way decides to give it to you, if they see fit to give it to you.
Absolutely.
I don't think we really thought that out.
The hope of the program that we've put together with the United Way is really to address it from the supply side, and hope that by providing an alternative way to give, that individuals who are interested in giving to the social needs or the perceived social needs that they see will have a way that they can give that is going to be a more holistic and comprehensive support for those individuals than simply handing an individual a one-time donation. And that over time, we're going to be able to hopefully shift the patterns in giving in the community in a more holistic direction.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. But if I'm in need of $5 today, $10 today, $20 today, and I can stand in the median and get it, and now we've changed the outcome of donating and receiving. So the $20 I need today may be $8 I receive in 3 days.
I think that's a good.
I just want to make sure you understand. We've looked at this thing thoroughly.
Yeah.
And I think that we're looking at it from the standpoint of an organization that doesn't want people standing in the median. We're not looking at it as an organization that's trying to rectify the needs of people, whether they're fake needs or not. Just my opinion.
If I could jump in here, Kevin, I hear what you're saying. I saw some of these signs downtown, and my understanding was this is not directed so much at the people in the median maybe, but more, and I don't know, I certainly stand to be corrected because I'm not involved except as an observer, but I know that downtown people are constantly giving food or maybe $1 or $2 or something like that, and I thought that was what this was trying to combat more than, I get it, those organized guys in the median, they're making good money out there. I hear what you're saying, but I thought this was more for the people around, not just downtown. I don't know where the signs are. Frankly, I'd like a map of that, but to stop people from giving food. I see this all the time. People giving food to an individual, or people giving $1 or $2 to an individual that's downtown, that's homeless, that everybody know. I mean, they may be chronically homeless, like they wanna, they don't want to look at other options. So I don't know, I thought that was what that was for, more than addressing the people in the median.
It is part of.
Margaret, and I get what you're saying, but still, if a person is in a need, I mean, Margaret, like if you were to get paid, right, and you wanted your check, but you had to come to me for me to give you your check, that's not how you want your check, right? You want it to come directly to you, or any money that was yours, you would want it to come directly to you and not through someone else.
Mr. Mayor? Ultimately, my understanding is an educational campaign to the public on the best way to leverage any dollar they're trying to give to help folks in need. That this is the best way to leverage that money, to be a conduit to our, I think as Jared put it, the constellation of nonprofits that we have that can truly make a dent in the issues that we're seeing. And then secondarily, the DOT signage is a public safety initiative to make sure folks that are standing on medians less than 6 feet, that is going to be enforceable via code in an agreement with the DOT as a public safety initiative, so that folks aren't going to get run over. Fair synopsis.
Yes, sir. I think that we would refer to what we're attempting from the city side to do with the Better Way to Give as a comprehensive community education program that'll be ongoing as a way to be effective with your use of dollars if you want to give to folks who demonstrate those needs. The things that we've done so far include an op-ed with the United Way, media outreach, signage, city newsletter, print and digital promotion of the effort, social media, and use of our billboards. And our hope is to continue to provide these educational opportunities for the community so that over time we can try to develop giving patterns that are going to be able to have a very robust support system, and that dovetails with the work that we're doing to proactively connect individuals with the social services that are available in the community, and that stands related to but distinct from the use of signage on a more regulatory capacity for standing in the median.
Do we have an instance? Do we have one instance of any person standing in the median that was asking for money being run over? I think that's something that this city council created.
Mr. Spears, we don't have any situations where someone has actually been hit, but we have, and I believe that one of the gentlemen that Mr. Anderson was referring to that he met with the other week also came to my office and met with me, and he does own a trucking company where he uses large semi-trucks, and he has had several instances where he's had to essentially stop his truck in the middle of one of these major intersections because someone was too close, and his drivers are having to yell out the window at them to back up because the middle part of the truck is going to come over that part of the intersection. So although we haven't had anyone hit, we have had multiple reports from this gentleman and others that they've had to adjust their driving, especially with large trucks, because of fear of hitting these individuals and having to warn them to get out of those intersections.
Okay, thanks, Meredith.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I hear you, but I'm not really convinced by that piece of information.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Meredith.
All right.
Thank you, everybody. With that, we'll see you tomorrow night. We stand adjourned.
Governance Committee meets across the street.